Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is IP with another video. Before I start this video, I just want to comment on my thoughts on the recent upcoming Terminator and Mortal Kombat film. Well, let's start with the Mortal Kombat film. I'm excited about it. First, James Wan is producing, and if you know James Wan, he directed Saw trilogy, Fast and Furious 7, which was excellent, probably arguably one of the best in the franchise. And he also did very recently Aquaman, which is one of DC's best films to date, one of them. And now he's producing Mortal Kombat, which is going to be a high budget film. I don't think he'll attach, based on his line of work, he'll attach any subpar films to his resume. So I'm looking forward to that. And as far as the Terminator film, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. We had a lot of Terminator films, and people feel uncomfortable with the word reboot with any franchise, but I want you to think of something. The concept of Terminator is a reboot in itself, because they're correcting a time period. So they could keep doing this forever. I mean, because it's basically rewriting history is the whole premise. So if it's not your cup of tea for this one, they'll probably have a shot on the next one. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'm excited, especially that James Cameron is helming it again. So it looks to be a good film. With that being said, let me get to the topic at hand, which will be Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolution. Now, these are in my top 5. I won't say what number it land on. Want to keep that a mystery, but I would say it's in my top 5, and there's a specific reason why these two films are in my top 5. Number one is because the concept is knee deep in complexity. The fight choreography is top notch. And third, I feel like it's comfortable in its own skin as far as being original. I don't think they tried to meet people's expectations. They wanted to exceed it. And the time of its release, I don't think people were ready for it. Matrix 1 opened the doors as far as, the bullet time effect, the wire work utilization in the films for, the early 2000s and up. Excuse me. And also the whole idea of thinking outside the box, and it took partial aspects of different genres within the film industry and kind of turn it on its head. Like, for instance, they took the sci-fi time travel concept from Terminator, even though it wasn't time skips, but it was matter manipulation with the mind, as if they were twisting the idea of time and space and making it relative rather than absolute. And once they opened that door, people thought that was the end of it. They didn't want Matrix to go beyond that because they felt it would be stupid. Neo being the one, him being like a messiah, him being like some type of savior. They borrow heavily from religious concepts, and it shows in a lot of, you know, the themes that they relied heavily on part one. Matrix Reloaded turned on its head. I mean, they actually challenged the very premise that made part one a classic, which is the one being the end all be all for the human race. And that wasn't true when Reloaded came out. They basically just said that this whole idea of the one is another element of control. And I felt that was really shocking. I mean, even when this movie came out, I was like 14 years old. You know, I'm 30 now, so that should tell you how, you know, this movie impacted me, because, you know, it was one of the first films that I really wanted to grasp. You know, I made it a mission to really understand this film at its core, and the more I looked at it, I was still finding things. So that lets you know it's a timeless film, because to this day I'm still finding aspects of the story that I didn't catch first time watching it. I got part one. I mean, when it comes to Matrix, the first one, I mean, I got it all figured out. I understand it completely. But part two is, I'm still finding things in it, and that leads me to Revolution. Reloaded has a closing. I mean, a conclusion that you can leave off with, but Revolution has its own premise. Now, at face value, you would think that they were just like two halves of the same movie, but they're really not. It's basically contradicting itself, because Reloaded give you this thought that it was the one concept was a form of control, but then Revolution comes by and shows that the one was indeed the one. So it's like they challenge the concept only to challenge what challenged the concept, if that makes sense. So and another thing, the action went beyond any film before it. Like if you've seen my last video about Lucy, about power elevation, Neo in the end of part one began to fly. He stopped bullets, and after that you would think that, oh well, they're not going to really touch on that because it's going to get ridiculous. But as his powers evolved, the complexity in the story evolved with it. So it wasn't just mindless action. I mean, all of this had some depth to it. For instance, when he fought the different agent Smiths, Agent Smith, who was no longer an agent of the system, but was Neo opposite. Like, he became unplugged, if you will, and sort of became a virus that escalated with cloning and duplicating himself in the Matrix, and soon to be Zion. That was the goal, to go to Machine City and destroy Zion. But Neo fighting him and Smith constantly duplicating himself made Neo power elevation seem to be of no value, because if this is going to be the end factor, you have to figure out how to stop this duplication, and if you stop it, have you really stopped the war? Because if you recall, the architect was basically saying that this is the 6th time that we are going to stop the one from defeating or stopping this war. And Revolution, basically it ended off with a sacrifice. So and another thing, you know, with the different characters, like part one, you know, you had the agents who were a threat, to the extent where Morpheus was basically saying that, you know, that was the goal, like, to, because they were holding all the keys. But once they defeat Agent Smith in, you know, the first film, the second film, you just realize that was just scratching the surface, because then you had the Merovingian, who actually had keys to doors that, You know, they couldn't even read in the decoding of the Matrix. So, and then you had these mythological beings that were glitches somewhat from an older version of the Matrix. So they were established in this present Matrix as like supernatural beings. And all this is going on while updated agents are being sent to take down people who follow the one and other people who were unplugged. And then you're finding contradictions in the origins of the Oracle, and he finally confronts the architect. And when you get to Revolution, you know, the Oracle was replaced with another, you know, her features changed. It was a completely different actress, you know, for her on the third and me on Revolution as it was to the first two films. And, you know, you see Agent Smith absorb her and duplicate himself and become the total he evens the playing field with Neo, because at this point Neo becomes the most powerful being in existence as far as being in the Matrix. And you know, once he, you know, it was like Clash of the Titans, and the action was so explosive. It was like I have yet to see a clash between two opposing characters that has that much impact in a film to date. So you know, I could talk about this all day, but you know, the time is running short. But you know, that's, you know, basically the reason why I put, you know, these two films in my top 5. And I'll be doing more breakdowns on these because, you know, it's going to take multiple videos. But I mean, that's basically kind of trying to give you a condensed idea of why I put this in my top 5. On that note, I peace signing out. Thanks.